Great. Thank you, Savannah. So happy to be here. Very excited. I'm from Freshworks, as you said, and I've been dealing with product marketing for quite a while in CRM. Been with Freshworks for about a year and a half right now. And prior to that, I was working at Oracle and also Accenture and Hitachi Consulting, where I led large engagement teams and even implementations in CRM, as well as Salesforce automation and ERP, and our favorite topic, AI. So doing some of that stuff today. I'm going to be talking with my colleagues here today. Peter, we're hoping that he can join us a little bit later. We think he's dealing with a little bit of an emergency, but Lauren's gonna work with us today. Very excited. Lauren, if you could introduce yourself, let us know what is Factor8 and what are we doing with Factor8?
Yeah, oh, this is fun. So Lisa and I have drastically different backgrounds, right? Like I look at your LinkedIn profile and I'm so impressed. You have so much technology background in the implementations of and I am not. I am a bit of a technophobe. I'm going to be honest. I'm a late adopter. I'm all about the people side. So for 15 years with Factor8, we've been doing frontline training for reps and managers on how to have better sales conversations virtually. And for the last 5 years, I've been working with Girls Club, a passion project of mine, about getting more women to heads of sales positions. But my background is all about leading sales teams and leading sales training and enablement teams. So I'm sort of the people side. And I am ready to get some questions answered about AI because I am a novice. And like I said, a late adopter. So I'm going to ask the stupid questions so y'all don't have to. And I'm really looking forward to learning from you.
I love it, Laura. This is so great. That's really authentic, because we all have questions about AI. As we're going to see today, I'm going to present, kind of lead us through a little bit of a discussion as Savannah mentioned this AI for Sales survey that Freshworks commissioned with a company called Dianetta. They're a global market research firm. They've been around for a very long time. I think they were called New Research prior to that. But this is going to show some insights, but then I want to talk to Laura and see what her thoughts are around this. Does this sound like AI is really worth it? Or does this sound like, it's more marketing stuff? So I know you're going to keep me honest on all this stuff for sure. So a little bit about the survey. It was conducted with globally with 1,200 respondents. The director role was folks that were above director. About 90% of them were all upper level roles. The industry breakdown, interestingly enough, we're looking at industries, technology, 23%, meaning like software, SaaS, IT, that sort of thing. Manufacturing, 23%, retail and business services, meaning like professional services, legal, consulting firms, and then the rest are other. So that gives you just a really kind of a cross section of who was responding to this particular survey.
Lisa, it's really important because what that tells me is this isn't all tech people, right? This isn't a survey about technology by technology people. Manufacturing, retail, we're typically late adopters. So business services, the same. So this is great.
Exactly. Good observation on that, Lauren. One of the key insights that came from this, and this is really interesting, is that the opportunity versus the reality. So, Lauren, there was this opportunity for AI that people, and in the survey, we uncovered that the highest revenue growth companies were 6 times more likely to use sales and marketing AI over the lower growth companies. But yet the reality of it was that 55% of them are still not using artificial intelligence. So what do you think about that? I mean, it's kind of interesting, right?
More than half of the people aren't using it. I'm definitely in that half, right?
Okay.
But the ones who are using it are either getting great results from AI or they're the forward thinking early, right? They are growing high growth, forward thinking companies. So I don't know if it's correlation or causation, but it's significant either way.
That's nice to think of it that way, because when you think about the total, when you think about the SaaS companies or retail or business services like consulting firms, they're more likely to be on the leading edge to consume this AI opportunity. And it's interesting you mentioned on the manufacturing side, we're not seeing manufacturing as much, but they are starting to inquire. Of course, they traditionally use, right, AI in their supply chain. So now they're starting to look more at how can we impact sales and marketing. And I think that's what we're starting to see in the survey a little bit. So, you know, really what we're here today to talk about though is how can sales really benefit from AI? And I know you have some opinions on that, Lauren, but first let's ask the audience. Savannah, if you could run a poll for us, we're going to see which you guys think about what were your top focus areas if you were interested in focusing AI on. I'm seeing some information coming in, and you know, it's kind of interesting. I see some account and relationship intelligence that's kind of running in the foreground. That seems to be an important one. Seems to be something that people are most interested in. I know that we'll be bringing the poll up here shortly to share with everyone. I think it takes roughly, what, Savannah, about 30 seconds. Count relationship intelligence. Looks to be in the #1 position, and then sales personalization.
I find that really interesting. I want to hear how that works.
Yes.
Right? Like, isn't personalization all about not being spammed at and not being the robotic, and yet we're going to have the computers do that? So like in both of those, it's the relationship. We want to automate our relationships.
Right.
It's strange to me. But then you look at forecasting and lead scoring, which are numbers based, but those are scored lower. So y'all know more than I do, obviously. Like there's something I don't get.
Interesting. Well, let's go to the next slide and let's take a look at what actually came out in our survey. And from the survey that Dianetta conducted. And so it's kind of interesting how it ran in correlation there. We had relationship intelligence coming out in the #1 position for us, and it came out second in our survey. Sales forecasting turned out to be a very important one. And again, it may be, Lauren, that it was really the sales managers who were responding quite a bit on this. So forecasting was very important to them, right? As an upper echelon role where you're getting in director and manager level responses. So when we talk about relationship intelligence, what's interesting about this is it's really about how can you look at knowing more about the individuals that you're prospecting on. I love a great example, and Lauren, you're going to relate to this. And because I've carried a bag, I've ran sales organizations before. And all of us can say, we know when we used to go to conferences, and I think we're all starting to go to conferences again. What's one of the hardest things for us to do is to get those leads and then follow up on them after we get back from the conference.
Oh yeah, literally just had a conversation about this.
Yes. Right? Yeah. So it's like you have the best intentions. You have the intentions. Oh, I've got all my leads. I got people I made notes on, or I have them in my phone or whatever. And then you get back to the office and what happens?
Well, frankly, it's like they go dark, right? Or you wait too long to go back, right? It's just the ROI is all in reconnecting on those leads.
Yeah. And there's an old saying, you know, time kills all deals. So the longer you wait, the more likelihood they're going to lose interest. So what if you had, I'm just going to put a little applied technology in here. What if you had AI? What if you had an AI assistant that, let's say, and this is a practice which you guys would have to do while you're at the conference, where you're walking around the conference or you're out and you decide to make a voice note on, hey, I need to follow up on Joe Smith, and he's with this company, and he says he has interested in X, Y, and Z product. You made a voice note on that, it goes into your CRM, and lo and behold, when you get back to the office, you have a meeting on your calendar or a reminder on your calendar. And then you have an AI assistant that has already contact scored this person and said, hey, we've seen this person had interest before. This is a hot one, and surfaces that deal up. Is that something that would appeal to you? Do you see how that kind of?
I like that.
Yeah.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think the flip side of that, so let me go devil's advocate on you. When I see, everybody loves a cadence tool, for instance, and I'm a huge fan, right? Like outreach it saves lives every single day.
Yes.
But what frustrates me is when I watch reps who only work the flags, right? So there is no account strategy. Like I'm looking at my lead list or my book and I see, ooh, I haven't contacted this bottom 20%, or I haven't, right? I'm not penetrating. I'm only working the flags.
Yes.
And it kind of keeps me on the what's hot top of mind here, but it's not helping me get strategic and have a holistic view of managing my entire book of business. Do you know what I mean, Lisa?
Yeah, exactly. And it's more of a prioritization of all of it rather than just some of it.
Yes. And I think maybe that's the hesitation where it's like, oh my God, yeah, that'd be incredible until you only look at that. Well, what do you mean I'm supposed to call these other accounts? My AI assistant didn't surface it for me.
Right.
I've gotten lazy so that I only do what my assistant pops to me or what my cadence tool pops to me that day instead of having an overall knowledge or handle of.
Yeah, and I think it brings it back into something you mentioned when we had a discussion earlier about combining not only the discipline of sales in the traditional sense, but also using it as being supplemented by AI.
Right, exactly. Like it's AI that's going to pop up the ads that come to me, right? When I'm on social media or when I'm online or, whatever the case may be. I talk about having a backache and all of a sudden I'm getting ads from Amazon listening to me or about back medicine or whatever it is. I understand that is some pretty intelligent machine learning. And I just like the other half of the conversation is with my children, for instance. Hey, where does technology go? Like, let's not get so excited and every time somebody sends something to you, hey, you're clicking on this. Like, use the internet to search what you decide you're going to search for. Don't just eat what they feed you. Does that?
Yes.
Right?
And I think it and that's where you come in your company is keeping that mix together.
Yeah.
That don't become so reliant on technology, but still use good logical sales processes and discipline.
I clearly watched too many movies in the 80s, like I, Robot, where machines took over the world. Let's learn more.
We all have that fear. We all have that fear that, oh my God, AI is going to replace us. Yeah. Well, not really. I think a lot of the companies are trying to see how can they augment, how can they relieve you of the mundane tasks, right?
And exactly. And listen, we are all in a war for talent. Right? We all are, and we will continue to be so. If you just look at the demographics, right? This isn't a passing trend. We all have to work smarter, right? And I think that's where it fits.
Right, exactly. So on this survey, these are some key areas. And I think for those that you are watching, once you'll get a copy of the survey that will be emailed to you at the end of this session. But what's nice about this chart, if you're new to AI or not sure of the areas where it can help you, I would say grab this chart and you can have a discussion with either Freshworks or any vendor who provides AI to look at these particular areas that maybe these are areas that you want to improve upon. Maybe not all of them, because that might be a lot, right, Lauren? Right. You want to be able to educate people and also show your salespeople on how to use this. So I think,
but it helps me understand what it can do. And now let's get into the how does it do it, right?
Exactly.
Like what do you actually do in forecasting? Because that I automatically get suspect, right? So how does it work?
Yeah. Well, I mean, forecasting, particularly in our product, I mean, it's one where it actually compels the salesperson to be able to commit better, to prompt them to be able to still engage, but to be able to commit to a particular deal realistically, right? So it's more done in that fashion, and also trends about perhaps how this person has committed in the past. Were they accurate? Were they slightly off? And it looks at it over a period of time.
Yeah.
So it begins to see trends and patterns.
Now, I like that a lot as a sales leader, right? I get a gut feeling that, hey, Lisa likes to forecast every good conversation she has. But so, when I'm talking to Savannah, she's a sandbagger. Yeah, right. But with AI, I get some actual accuracy with that.
Right.
Here's something in chat that's interesting. So Kevin, thank you so much for your information. Kevin Holland says, in my opinion, intent data and conversational AI, the full spectrum, are critical, not nice to have, but have to haves. So there's your spectrum, right? The people going, what the heck is it? And other people going, I won't work for a company who doesn't have it.
Right. And I think what he's referring to, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, you can jump in another chat, is where you're looking at the conversational ability, particularly even the use of bots and natural language processing, where you bring in the ability to recognize what the prospect or customer is saying, and to be able to respond to them in a humanistic way. And this is getting better and better over time, in that it becomes much more natural and more real. But the most important part, and again, Laura, you're going to love this, because it isn't all about the bot responding via AI. There comes a point where it's important to transfer that call over to the salesperson or to an agent who can have a conversation with you.
Yeah.
Right. So that gets us back more into being able to have those automated conversations to tease out who the prospects are, and then what is the next level of conversation we need to have with them.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah,
totally true.
Yep.
All right.
So let's go on. This is interesting, but again, keep your eye on this chart. I think it'll be helpful for you all later on. So here's a key insight from the survey. And we've seen this, as long as many years I've been in this business. This is not unusual. This key insight: 85% of the AI projects fail to deliver, and 53% only make it from prototype to production. Now, that is an astounding figure and might be shocking to many of us, to say, my goodness, if AI is so great, why do they tend to fail so often? And really, I'm going to lead on to the next question, Lauren, where we talk about, is it part that the projects are so sweepingly large that they're trying to boil the ocean to do everything at once? Or is your sales organization educated enough for successful AI, right?
I bet you've seen this a million times with CRM and ERP implementations.
Same thing. Yeah.
We do it wrong, right? You have to start with the process and understanding what it is and have it well defined. Then you move on to the people, right? The skills, the using it correctly. Then you put in the tool, right? But when you buy the tool to solve the problem, it's just garbage in, garbage out. So that's my guess.
Right.
I think a lot of sales leaders, we buy tools because they're sexy and they have high promises, and we buy them for the reps we used to be. And that it's just not the case anymore.
Right. And, being in consulting organizations where we've spun up AI projects, that's probably the one thing that I would say is the one that causes them to fail most often, or not be as successful quickly, may I put it, is that they're so broad sweeping that they're trying to do everything at once. Everything from all of those items that you saw on the chart, right? And trying to make a difference in all of those things. And, there's an approach that we're using at Freshworks is kind of start with the small things first, take a little chunk out of it, address some of these things. And then also your sales organization can also be more able to receive and understand what AI is doing from them, for them particularly. So it's kind of in that arena that, we should consider lessening the scope of AI, I think, and look at just a few key areas in your organization in which you're ripe and ready for, whether it be conversational, bots. Maybe you want to use those, or maybe you want to use the sales forecasting, or small things where you use the AI assistant. Just that example I used, like a voice note, and being able then to have that reminded to you and prioritize based on contact scoring. How important is that contact to you? Just a few little things can really, turn the tide, I think.
Yeah, I like the idea of starting small.
Yep.
But now it's like, how do you know, right? How do you know if I need to go down the AI road, or if I just need to fix it? Is it a skill? Is it a tool? Is it a process? Is it AI? That's right. A big question, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And you'll see that what we've seen there's a lot of customized AI, which prolongs some of these projects as well. And so when you start to look for solutions, we suggest that you look for built-in AI that's really part of your CRM and embedded in the CRM, which begins to give you a look into your sales organization, a look into your marketing organization, a look into your service organization. So it's all built and ready to go, rather than waiting for one of these project implementation cycles.
Yeah,
so look for that for whatever software you're looking for. Let's go to the next slide. So let's look at this key insight. Lauren, I don't know what you think about customer data and data quality, but still, as long as I've been in this business, 40% are saying that it's still a challenge to maintain high quality customer data.
Yeah, I think I think that number is down from where it was 10 years ago, thanks to the fabulous companies in our tech stacks who do that for us now. But I mean, yeah, data's got the shelf life of bananas. That's always the case. Yeah.
Shelf life of bananas. Very interesting. So we're going to look at another poll here. And for those of you that are out there, what's the top challenge for sellers as it relates to data? So I'm seeing, if you'll go ahead and take a look at what you're seeing, we've got inaccurate contact information.
Yeah. What's great is they're all related, right? So ask any field rep in the world to keep CRM updated, and the global eye roll would change the rotation of the sun around the universe, right?
Exactly.
And which is why we have incomplete information, and you're never going to get it perfect from your external sources, right? There's always going to be inaccuracies. So I can't wait to see. I think it would be hard to choose. I think you're going to get a lot of all of the above on this.
Yes, exactly. So I'm seeing a lot of all of the above right now.
Coming in.
Yeah, coming in. That's that seems to be the one. So, what you said, the global eye roll of being able to update the data and asking sellers to do it. And more, excuse me, that AI can help to facilitate that.
How does it do that?
Yep. Well, for instance, as you're bringing in external data sources and bringing in behavioral data and bringing in a variety of intent data from the internet, you begin to develop a profile. And as long as that information from that external source is being updated accurately and being brought into your system, you then can correlate that information across the whole of it and bring that to the surface, that aggregated to the seller or to the customer service agent or any of the folks that's looking for this type of data. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So it's an aggregation of data that's brought in, but then patterns and trends and algorithms that are run against the data, like likelihood, or what are next best actions for these particular profiles. What would be the next thing that you should sell them, right? What's the next best offer? What's the next best product? Or what products have they bought before and what are they most likely to buy now? So these are the kinds of things that particularly are useful for sellers.
So is that like when I log into Amazon and it tells me that based on my past order history, it might be time to buy blank, right?
Yes.
It's suggesting me products based on AI, what I've looked at and what I've bought in the past.
Yes, it's called a recommendation engine.
Yeah.
So, and it's particularly helpful
Mhm.
for sure. You know, as far as wanting to understand others who, like you, based on your behaviors, what you bought and didn't buy in the past,
Mhm.
are buying. And that's how Netflix does it, or
Mhm.
Amazon does it, is they actually bring that information up to the surface. So
Yeah, that's cool.
definitely, definitely. So let's move on to the next slide. There we go. So, you know, in talking about AI, Lauren, you know, there's some ideas. We talked a little bit about this, right? How do you get the most out of AI? So we talked about data quality. We talked about starting small and educating sellers. From your experience, what is it that, what's the best way to go about educating sellers for a new technology like this?
Yeah. Well, like I said before, the best thing you do is make them do it before you give them the tool, right? So if they're already in the habit, let's use your recommendation engine of, hey, guess what? Our standard operating procedure is before you're calling into your account manager, your account base, right? Then I want you to identify the next likely 3 products that they may buy. And you get them in a habit of having to do this every single time. And then you give them the tool that helps them do it. You're going to have 10x the adoption, right? So process, skills, then tool. That's step 1. But for me, I'm going to use recommendation engine again because it's the solid example that we have here. It's about how to bring it up. So many of what we lack in our sales conversations are because we just are nervous, right? We don't have the muscle memory and do it, or we don't feel like we have the time, especially as digital sellers, when, right, we have 10 seconds of interest and 10 seconds to keep attention. So for instance, if I were a rep making an outbound call and my AI engine told me that I should sell coffee filters, dog food, and vitamins, this next person, if you don't train them, right, if you don't educate them on how to have and bring up the conversation, then the call sounds like, Lisa, hey, it's Lauren calling from Acme Company, and my system here tells me it's probably time for you to buy coffee filters, dog food, and vitamins. Like I can't tell you how many calls I've heard like that, right? It's the same thing with an inbound lead, right? Hey, you probably filled something out on my website, so my job, I'm supposed to call you. So it pops you up in my system and I'm supposed to call you. I can't tell you how often people refer to their system, which is like, it's like, don't show behind the curtain, folks, you know?
Exactly.
So you bring it up a different way instead, and you do it in a way that's showing value to the customer and relationship building with the customer. And at the very least, you say, it looks like you've bought dog food from us in the past. How's that gone for you? And you use it as a conversation starter. Never, my system tells me I'm supposed to, because nobody likes being sold
systematized.
Nobody likes being synthesized and automated, and right?
Right.
I think it's neat when Amazon can do it, but you're a person, so know me.
Yeah, right. It's, and that's a great segue into talking about a little bit here what we have on the screen, unified CRM, where understanding, you know, all the interactions in the past that the customer may have had with you. Everything from.
But how do you do that quickly? Right? Yeah. Because again, 9 out of 10 sales reps are not going to get beyond one scroll.
That's right. That's right. So the idea is have it all on one screen. You have the critical support issues. You don't have all the support issues perhaps that are open against the customer. Have you ever sold something? You went to a customer and they had a critical support issue open, and the minute you walk in the office or make that phone call, you feel something's way off.
Well, and you feel like an idiot, right? Yes, I'm here to sell you more and you're pissed.
What's the first thing the customer says? Hey, we've been trying to solve this problem for how long? And that will kill the sale faster than anything.
Yeah.
So having just the critical, most recent support issues on the screen, understanding what you're calling into, right? Are you calling into a landmine, or is this customer health score pretty good? Okay, we're good. We feel strongly that they're a satisfied customer today.
Right. Yeah.
Because guess what? It changes. It's not like, you know, in the old days, traditionally, you could go a couple of months and the customer's going to be happy and you're probably not worried about it. Today, it's a new day. It's anything can happen. Things change. Macroeconomic environment changes, you know, inflationary things.
Right.
A lot of things are moving around and people are adjusting their budgets or changing things. How do you bring in information related to customers about their current, you know, revenue and market cap and so forth, and all of that comes together to share, or acquisitions that are happening at the company, right? That's always an opportunity for selling and buying, especially in a B2B environment. But having that all on one screen, you're absolutely right, without having to click around for it is absolutely essential, because that's the last thing a rep wants to do is, you know, double click into stuff. Yeah. It's like it needs to be presented the relevant information. Most recent products bought, if you're running e-commerce, and you can also see perhaps what they may have bought on an e-commerce channel simultaneously. So all of that gives you some background. You know, what was the value, the price that was sold for the last set of products or the last contract that you pitched to them. So there's that. So having that 360-degree view, which you guys all have heard about, I'm sure. And then lastly, you know, it's not unheard of to have a person or an organization to manage your data quality. So if you're bringing in lead space or Zoom info, or working with some of the external data sources to complement your internal data, you should have a person or organization to look after that so they can manage it, and because it just doesn't take care of itself.
Yeah, so true. And when you don't, nobody owns data quality.
That's correct. That's correct.
And I bet that has a lot to do with that fail number that we talked about at the beginning.
Yep. And so it is something central. So if there isn't someone managing, you know, whether it's in marketing ops or whether it's in, you know, data governance in a larger organizations, or just Joe, the data quality person, think of having that in place to manage some of those external data sources that are absolutely critical to y'all. So let's take a look at, we're sliding into home here, to use a baseball term so far here, Lauren. And I just want to wrap up a little bit about some of the benefits. And I don't know if we've convinced you at all about AI for sales. Maybe not.
I think that I'm getting it though. No, I think it's fantastic. I think AI for the sake of AI is silly. It's like buying tools for the sake of tools. And that's why we have a tool fail rate, of course. But what I'm getting here is just how it can be used to have more intelligent conversations, and how it can be used to make things faster for reps, and how it can be used to make things easier for reps and managers. And I'm all in there.
Oh, nice. Yeah. And again, it'll never replace, for sure. It just won't. Although, you know, it will certainly reduce the friction and the tedium and the mundaneness, for sure. And so here's the summary. What do you need to do to get the most out of AI quickly? You know, so when you're shopping for AI or thinking about AI, look at Salesforce automation or marketing automation systems that have the AI built in, even if it's just a little bit of AI, whether it's in contact scoring or forecasting or relationship intelligence, all those checklists that you saw, because it doesn't need to be a boil the ocean project that goes on and on and on.
Right.
So let's look at that. Understand and promote AI usage with your sellers. Then, Lauren, this is all that you're about, is making sure they understand how they're going to use it. Great tip from you on how to ask them for results based around using it, right? And then lastly, you know, build processes, or have Joe, the data quality guy, in place so that he can look after making sure that the data is most up to date, and is being fed and fed into AI properly so that you can get the most out of AI.
Good.
So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Savannah, and she's going to talk to you all about how you would access the report that was produced by Freshworks. I want to thank you all for attending today, and Lauren, thank you for a really interesting conversation.
Putting you through your paces, right? I enjoyed the education. I
Yeah.
really appreciate that.
Yeah, and bringing reality to us software vendors. We really appreciate it.